A Dallas police officer on Saturday night after the attempt on Donald Trump's life, somewhere across social media put up a post, and within the post it said, "Aim better." He got called out. Other officers were alerted to it. That bubbled its way up not long after. At some point in time, the post was removed. I've not seen it. I've not read it. I've not participated with it. It's been pulled down, but it's created a stink, and it ended up in the Dallas News today and across several other sites because it's ending up on Eddie Garcia's desk, the chief of police. And people are calling for the police officer's head. He's a 14-year veteran police officer. And somewhere in the post it said, "Aim better." Should he or shouldn't he be fired? So my question to you is this. It's a Democratic Party that started and loves the cancel culture. And cancel culture is all about if you say something controversial, if you say something we disagree with, if you don't agree with us, group think, then we're going to penalize you. We're going to come after you. We're going to attack you. We're going to polarize you. We're going to ask that you get fired, and we will do everything we can to damn you. That's cancel culture. It's group think. If you don't believe what we do, then you are a existential threat to democracy, and we need to get rid of you. Now, you and I, on the other hand, we believe in the First Amendment, the right to freedom to speech. Now, freedom of speech doesn't guarantee freedom of consequences, because there's always consequences, right? You can't walk into a movie theater and scream fire and run. Well, you can, but you can be arrested for it. And you can be prosecuted for it. Depending on the municipality and the local laws and state laws, maybe you do get convicted, maybe you don't. Maybe you serve time, maybe you don't. But freedom of speech is freedom of speech. And the internet and social media gives us a platform for that. That doesn't mean that it's okay to be stupid. That doesn't mean it's acceptable to post anything you want. But it does give you freedom of speech. So my question to you is this. Where do you draw the line between freedom of speech and taking away the right to freedom of speech? Is it okay for a police officer to post that? Even though I disagree with it. I wouldn't have posted that because I don't believe it. I don't think that way. I would have never done that. And it was stupid to do. But in the end, that police officer put his department and his leadership in a position where they have to deal with this. And the winds of political pressure, the winds of public pressure are going to dictate this guy's outcome. Should he or shouldn't he be fired? Earlier, I took a call from a guy named Oliver that was just hopping mad and all over it and said this guy was stupid for doing it and he should be fired. And I've taken several callers since that kind of waffled between. The last caller, William, said, when you're paid to protect the public and when you're a public servant, you have a higher level of standard. It'd be okay for a barista to post that. It'd be okay for me to post it because I'm an opinionated guy. It'd be okay for a lot of other employees to post it without fear of losing their job, but not somebody, a public servant. I disagree with that. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech no matter what role you play. How do you feel? 800-288-9227. Mike from Dallas, you've been on hold for a while. Thank you for calling. You're on with Westside Jeff on WBAP.
Thanks very much. I'm actually a law professor. I teach at UNT Dallas College of Law, and actually teach this subject. So I wanted to call and make two quick points. The first quick point, and it startles a lot of people, the First Amendment does not apply to private employees. It does not apply to a barista. It does not apply to you. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution, Jeff, only applies to public employees because the First Amendment only prohibits retaliation by the government against its employees. So that's the first point I would make. The second point I would make is this. Should he be fired? The question boils down to this, Jeff. How closely aligned is the comment with the police officer's duties? I believe, just on the little bit that I know, and I don't know all of it, as you don't, if his job and the comment are closely related to one another, then Chief Garcia has a good basis to fire him. His job is to enforce the law, which means you don't murder people. The comment, and again, I don't know all the facts, the comment seems to suggest aim better and murder someone. That deals with the police officer's job that he takes an oath to enforce. So if Garcia wants to fire him, I think he's got a good basis, because you cannot retaliate against an employee, a public employee, for expressing their opinion. If the cop said, I'm going to support Biden and not Trump, you can't touch that employee. He's entitled to the First Amendment. This deals with his job. And those are the kind of two quick points I wanted to make. And I make those in class, so I wanted to call and let you all know.
Mike, that's an interesting. You're very well spoken. You're, say, a professor of law at UNT. What message, let me follow up a question to you. What message does that send to the force about social media and posting? If you're going to fire a cop for posting something like that, what message does that send? Does that send a message of silence them? Is that dangerous?
I think it sends the message. I think this is, quite frankly, a teaching moment.
I agree with you.
I think this is a teaching moment. If Garcia wants to fire the police officer, and that'll be within his discretion, I think you can teach this as a teaching moment. The reason I'm firing him is he's here to uphold the law. We don't murder people. This comment could be taken as aim better, murder someone. That is so intertwined. It's twisted together like a pretzel with the police officer's job. That's not permitted. If, on the other hand, Garcia can tell the force, you have an opinion on who should be elected president, express it. You have a First Amendment right to do that, and we will not retaliate against you. But the closer the comment is to the job that the officer has to enforce, the more likely the officer is to be defeated in his or her retaliation claim for saying, you retaliated against me for exercising my First Amendment rights.
Mike, well stated. I appreciate you calling. I appreciate you listening. I want you to keep listening, because it's going to be, you're going to hear some callers who are going to comment based off what you said and some of the other comments. It'll be interesting to see what people say and follow up. So thank you for being a part of the show. I appreciate your comments.
I've actually been on the show several times. Chris calls me his Alan Dershowitz, so I'll be listening, and I'll be very interested in what people have to say.
I can understand why. Well spoken and a great professor. So thank you for what you do, and thanks for calling. That's Mike from Dallas. How do you feel about this story? Dallas police officer, should he be fired for First Amendment rights? Should he be fired for posting something, or should he not? Eddie Garcia is a tough decision to make, and part of that's going to be based off of the winds of political pressure and public pressure. He's got to be pushed. He's pushed into a position. He's got to do something, and it has to be visible. We're all going to find out at some point in time. What do you think? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Let's talk about it. A couple open phone lines. We'll get to some of your calls in about 4 minutes. My name's Jeff. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. Westside Jeff and for Chris Crocker, News Talk 820. WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. A 14-year veteran of the Dallas Police Department had written on a social media post Saturday night, aim better. Police launched an internal affairs investigation into that after being alerted to that. It's made its way to Eddie Garcia's desk on whether he should be fired or not. Some folks are calling for him to be fired, and I'm seeing stories about that in the Dallas Morning News and across other websites here in North Texas. My question to you is this. Police officer posts aim better after an attempt on a president's life or former president's life. Does he deserve to be fired? And why? Outside of the fact that the policies, the police department has issued policies that are very relative and pretty generic. My question is this, and my opinion is this. It's an opinion and then question. I'm a strong supporter of the First Amendment. And I support it even though it's hate speech. Even there's a lot of things I see across social media, people post that I say, keep that to yourself. And a lot more things I look at it and say, I totally disagree. And it's offensive. But I'm not going to call for their job. I'm not going to say they should be fired for something that they post publicly or that they say publicly to 2 or 3 folks, because they have the First Amendment right. That's what Democrats do. They come out and they say, if you don't agree with what we agree with, if you don't believe in what we believe with, and I call that group think, then we'll fire you. We'll eliminate you. We'll cancel culture you. I don't agree with that. That's what they do. That's not what we do. Yes, you can say stupid stuff. And yes, stuff that may be hate speech. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it or put up with it. I don't have to sit and watch it all day long on my social media feed. I can keep buzzing by it. But freedom of speech doesn't always guarantee freedom of consequences. Dallas police have to deal with this issue, and it's a great topic for you and I here in the public. How do you feel about it? 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-WBAP. Sylvia from Garland, thanks. You're with Westside Jeff on the Chris Crock Show. How do you feel about this issue?
Hi, Jeff. I'm usually like that other caller talking to Chris, but hey, I'm glad to finally get to talk to you. I called in when the lawyer was talking about sit down, have a good talking to, and I was thinking, what? Like he's a teenager? But your more recent caller, the professor, kind of touched on what I'm going to. I call myself the grandma dinosaur because I remember back when this wouldn't even come up for discussion because people were civil enough not to say this kind of thing anyway. But that's a whole nother can of worms. My late husband was a police officer. And one of the things that you do when you sign on that job is you agree to adhere to a certain set of standards. I'm not saying he should be fired, but he definitely should be disciplined. If he's achieved rank of some sort, he probably should be demoted one rank, at least as a sign to the rest of the force. This is not proper conduct for one of our officers because you are an ambassador of the city. You represent the city. So, yes, you are. The military and police officers, they're held to a higher standard. If this was a busboy in a restaurant, no, it wouldn't be, a fireable offense. But
what about a teacher?
A teacher, again, I agree with discipline. Maybe not necessarily firing, but like a suspension for a short time.
What about a principal?
Pay. It depends on what is written in their contract when they're hired. If
that's part of it.
In their contract when they're hired, they're told this is the standard of conduct we expect you to adhere to. And advocating murder would be breaking a policeman's standard. That's where, because this is a police officer, it is a different thing. They're paid by taxpayer dollars. I don't know what standards teachers are signing off on when they sign their contract to work for a school district. But I do know. So you're telling me
anybody that's paid by taxpayer dollars should be held to that standard?
They should be held to the standards that are in their contract because they supposedly read their contract.
What if it's not in their contract?
I heard that this guy marched for BLM, and the fact that he said aim better, he wasn't talking to the sniper because the sniper took the perp out with one shot. So he was talking to the perp or someone who wants to emulate the perp. Again, he's advocating murder, and he's supposed to be upholding the law, not encouraging the breaking of the law. So, yes, in some instances, there are differences. And I believe discipline needs to be more than just a talking to, like he's a teenage kid.
Sylvia, it's interesting you mentioned that this you heard or understand this police officer might have marched with BLM, which is a whole nother point. Let me ask you, if this person or police officer was part of the events on January 6th, not going into the Capitol, but was there pro-Trump, don't certify the election, so to speak, would you feel as strongly about that person's post as being a BLM supporter?
To
Made
me,
you think, didn't I?
we're starting to get into apples and oranges. I'm separating January 6th. I separate the people who broke law that my husband would have had to arrest because they scaled a wall, they broke windows, they broke front. He would have had to arrest them. Okay, but the people standing outside, just milling around and taking pictures, they were not really breaking any law other than trespassing, which is usually not enforced when there's large crowds like that on all kinds of occasions. And they were there legally exercising their constitutional right. I don't remember the article because I looked it up at the time. You had the constitutional right to question electoral representatives' votes cast. You can object to those. And they were exercising their constitutional right. You can look it up. It's in the Constitution. It's what Gore did in Florida.
But Sylvia, back to this question. Would you fire the police officer?
No, I said I wouldn't necessarily. Okay. I said more discipline than just talking to him. I would reduce him in rank if he had achieved rank, or maybe a certain time of suspension, possibly even a certain time of suspension without pay, to get across to him that we value your 14 years of service, but boy, you've called into question our judgment in hiring you. I would definitely make him fear for his job. If I didn't fire him, I would make him think twice before he did.
Sylvia, thank you for calling. I appreciate your opinion on that. I hear you loud and clear. And what you're saying is a public servant, somebody paid by taxpayer dollars, is held at a different standard than the public sector, is what I'm hearing you say. And I don't agree with that being the litmus test. To me, the litmus test is what your role. I liked what the attorney said moments ago. Mike said the First Amendment does not apply to every private employees, but public employees, and said how closely you're aligned in your comments to your job and duties. I thought that was very well said. That's my opinion. I'd like to hear yours. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. Got to hit the news bottom of the hour. Lori Waffenschmidt, I see her over there saying, come on, Jeff, let's go. Let's hit the news. She's got some audio from the wrap-up of the RNC tonight, and you'll hear that next on the other side of that. In about 5 minutes, we'll continue the conversation. Should a police officer be fired for posting something on his personal social media platform that you may disagree with? First Amendment, yes or no? My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crocken. News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on the FM at 93.3. A Dallas police officer posted on Saturday night, I believe it was, after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump, put it up on social media, said, aim better. 14-year veteran of the department had written that on social media. Internal Affairs was alerted to it. They did an investigation. It now sits on Eddie Garcia's desk on what to do, fire him or not. Several folks in the community are calling for that. Political winds, public winds are blowing, and Eddie Garcia's got to make a decision. My question to you is, do you or don't you fire him? It's easy to sit back and say yes because you disagree with his comment. But isn't that what Democrats do in cancel culture? I don't like what you say. I don't like what you post. It doesn't agree with me and my platform and our party. So we're going to cancel you. We're going to eliminate you. We're going to shame you. We're going to publicly chastise you and send a message that's unacceptable speech. It's unacceptable to say. And we're going to control content and the narrative. We're going to control messaging. We're going to send a message. If you do that, we'll ruin you. That's what Democrats do. It's not what we do. We believe in freedom of speech. We believe in saying what you want to say. It doesn't guarantee you no outcome or consequences. But where do you draw the line between freedom of speech and cancel culture? How do you feel about this story? Should the cop be fired? Should he not? What's Eddie Garcia do? How's political pressure come into play? And although I disagree with the comment of aim better, I disagree with the comment. Listen, decorum comes into play. That's stupid to post those kinds of things. As one of my favorite posts from Saturday night, moments after the shooting, said, it was simple. Don't get fired. In other words, don't say something stupid. Well, that was stupid to say. It was stupid to post. Can't take it back. It's in writing. It's since been deleted. But you can't unsee it. You can't undo it. And the fact is, the department has to deal with it. So what do? Where's the line? Freedom of speech versus freedom of consequences. 800-288-9227. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Crock, Chris is back tomorrow night. John from Euless, thank you for holding and thank you for listening. What are your thoughts and how do you handle this?
Hey, thanks for filling in for Chris. Oh, my thoughts are pretty simple. The guy obviously did something very stupid, ought to be punished for it or demoted or sent out to stand in the hot sun and direct traffic, but he shouldn't be fired. We can't replace 14 years of experienced officer with a newbie. That's just kind of stupid in general. And it's also a very good teaching motion, as one of your callers, a teaching chance here against for the rest of the departments to be careful of what they do. That's pretty much it. Thanks again for taking my comment.
John, thank you for calling. I appreciate you weighing in. Thanks for sitting on hold and good comments. Travis from University Park, you're on with Westside Jeff on the Chris Crock Show. How do you feel about this? What do you do and how do you handle it, Travis?
Yeah, well, first of all, one thing, I'm a licensed in the private sector in finance. I'm licensed with FINRA. I work for a bank that many of your listeners probably have banked with, that I may have banked myself. And if I went out on social media, I went into the public sector and said those kinds of inflammatory comments, especially there was at least one life lost because of violent rhetoric, I would lose my job. So it's that's one thing. Another thing.
You're a member of a big bank, and if you post something the bank doesn't agree with, you'll lose your job.
I would lose my job, 100%. The First Amendment's not absolute. You yell fire, just like Professor Mike said earlier. It's not absolute, but you have to. You're a representative of the community. You're here to protect us. You should know better. You really should. And there's a man dead, and there's two other people that are in critical condition, and a former president that was shot. They should know better. And it's up to Chief Garcia as to what the punishment should be, but he should know better. And they
Thank you for weighing in.
Higher standard.
Travis, Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. Interesting comment. That I agree. You just got to be. Don't be stupid. Bottom line, don't be stupid. But I don't agree with firing somebody necessarily based off of that. It's a tricky situation. David, thank you very much. Monique from Fort Worth. How do you feel about this? What do you do? What's the answer? What's the solution, Monique? Monique, you there? I think Monique hung up on me. Teresa from Midlothian. Teresa, thanks for calling in. You're on with Westside Jeff on WBAP. How do you handle this?
Well, I agree with you as far as I don't really think he should be fired, but I work for Dallas colleges, so I'm telling you that that's part of HR. Whenever you sign on, it is in your hiring manual that you cannot say anything that will defamate the college. You cannot say anything publicly that is going to create any type of controversy or bring any type of monetary damages towards the school district. I mean, you just can't do it. And I'm sure the police have the same thing. That's the thing where the line gets drawn. I know that being a police officer, doctors, anybody that deals with the public like that, they have HR. They have rules of conduct. And those rules of conduct tell you that you cannot do those things. And some of them explicitly say that you will get fired for it. You know, so, I mean, it depends on what the rules of conduct are with the police department. Again, I don't think you should get fired because I'm a big advocate for freedom of speech. But at the same time, you know, we've got a president that's coming on the TV right now telling us to dial it down and all this stuff, although he's very contradictory. Don't get me started on that. But, yeah. But I'm just saying, it's like everybody's saying dial this down because everybody's been talking trash for 3 years pretty much. And it's like now it's getting to the point to where it's reached dramatic, consequences, right? So why would he do that? I mean, he can have his opinion, but you can't post it publicly, not whenever you represent something. I mean, he represents the police department, just like I represent the college. You can't do
Teresa, what if that person that posted it was a barista at Starbucks? Now, remember, Starbucks is a very large, left-leaning...
What is their policy? What is their HR policy? I don't care who you work for. That's irrelevant. What is your HR policy? It depends on your company. And I can tell you right now, Starbucks, they have very high standards for their employees when it comes to the way they deal with the public. I can't give it to you verbatim, but I can tell you right now that they wouldn't allow you to cuss a customer out that was cussing you out. You couldn't cuss back at them. I mean, they have HR rules. And I know being a cop, because I have cops in my family, that they are told they are neutral. That's the big thing. They're neutral. It doesn't matter what their personal opinion is. When they go out somewhere, they cannot display any type of favoritism to anything, one way or the other.
Sure, that's on the job, but what about on their personal social media account?
Okay, it's his personal. Okay, but this is the thing. That's another thing. Like with us, with the school district, we're told that we can't post anything on social media. Even though it's our private account, it reflects upon the school district. Like I said, it's going to depend on what the policy is with the police department.
I get it. Teresa, thank you for calling. I appreciate your opinion on that. Thanks for being part of the show. It's a tricky topic. Certainly policy comes into play, but I can tell you from working for big companies, policy is not always very black and white clear. I like to say in life, there's black, there's white, and there's a whole lot of gray area. I used to work for a really, really large broadcasting company, not this one, not Cumulus, but a large broadcasting company that I thought handled things like that pretty well. I'll tell you how they handled that in 4 minutes, because I think, to me, that's a part of the solution. I'll tell you about that in 4 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Eddie Garcia's got a decision to make because he's got it sitting on his desk. What does he do? Does he fire him or does he not? 14-year veteran of the department, Dallas Police Department, had written "Aim Better" on a social media platform Saturday after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Police launched an internal affairs investigation to determine what department policy and policies were violated by the comment. That's according to a statement from the Dallas Police Department. What if it didn't violate any department policies? What if it was just stupid? What if it was just dumb, but no real policies affected, that really broken? What do? Do you fire him? Do you not? Where does First Amendment rights come in that allow him to post something, even if it is stupid, even if you and I disagree with him, but not penalize him for it? Many of our callers are calling in saying, you know what, he needs demoted. Somebody said, make him work as a traffic cop and stand out in the middle of the street, directing traffic at 100-degree heat. Well, my attitude is, if you're going to do that to a cop, what are you going to do a barista at Starbucks? What about a doctor? Think about any other job role that you know. What about a bus driver? What about a pilot? What other roles? Think about that. If you're going to tell me that you're going to penalize one role, one position, one employee of an organization, but not another, I want you to defend it. What do you do? 800-288-9227. The name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You can hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff, Facebook, X, Instagram, or call me like Mike from Frisco at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Mike, thanks for holding. I appreciate you calling the show. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Westside Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
I think too many people are conflating free speech with your ability to keep a job. They're two separate things. You can have all the free speech you want, but that doesn't guarantee that you should keep your job. When an organization hires you and says, these are our ideas and our goals and what we want to do, and then you come out and say, well, I'm against everything that you say, why should an organization have to be forced to keep you on as an employee? We have a law official that said it's okay to assassinate somebody. Why should that organization be forced to keep that person on as an employee? They shouldn't. And this nonsense that everybody can just say everything and then just keep every job they have is asinine. Imagine me being a middle school teacher and I say, hey, I'm a member of the MAP community. The MAP community is a male attractive people, which means adults want to have sex with children. And the school says to me, hey, we don't agree with that, and you need to stop talking about it. Hey, I've got free speech, and then the school can't fire me. So now I'm teaching young children, and I have this belief system where the parents are all concerned about who I may be. And now we're supposed to say the school has no authority to take any actions on that. Just like we're supposed to say that the law enforcement community has no authority to take actions on me saying it's okay to assassinate a former president. Just because
Mike, thank you for your call. I appreciate your opinion on this. I hear you loud and clear. You feel very strongly that you want to control the speech narrative, and you're against the First Amendment rights is what I'm hearing. Thank you for calling. Thank you for weighing in. I mentioned a moment ago I used to work for a really, really large broadcaster, not this company, not Cumulus, and I thought they handled this very well. When you were hired, you went through all kinds of paperwork and videos about representing the company, and they gave you boundaries. But even after you were hired on a regular basis, about every 3 to 4 months, you had to go through sensitivity training online. There were videos. You had to watch them. You had to watch them all the way through A through Z. Every minute of it. There was no way to fast forward it. There's no way to skip it. The only way you could do it is potentially start the video, walk away from your desk, and come back. But the problem was in the middle of the videos, they gave you testing to make sure that you were still engaged. At the very end of those videos on a regular basis, you had to print out a document that said, yes, I watched it. Yes, I understand it. And no, I have no other questions. And I understand I'll be held to these levels of engagement. And if I cross over, I could be disciplined, which may include a performance improvement plan, or terminated. And they did that on a regular basis. And part of that training was they gave specific examples. If you tweet this, if you post this, this is wrong and you could lose your job over it. But if you do it this way, you might not. So it was ongoing regular training that validated what not to do and what to do, but it also covered the butt of the company that was teaching it and going through it. I thought that handled it very well. What do you think? Should a cop be fired for posting something that you totally disagree with? Or is that freedom of speech? Monique from Fort Worth, thanks for listening. You're on with Westside Jeff on News Talk 820 WBAP.
Can you hear me now?
I gotcha.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me now? Yes,
I got you, Monique. Okay. Tell me what you think real quick. You got about 45 seconds.
Okay, so if I was Eddie Garcia, I would treat it as a terroristic threat. And you're lucky that the only thing you're going to get is the loss of your job. Because first of all, you're a public servant tasked with serving and protecting people. My community cannot trust you if you online saying things like that. Somebody was damn near killed from something, and you on here about shit, whatever he said. I would take that as a terroristic threat. You got to go.
Monique, thank you for calling. I appreciate your opinion on this. I got to run. Thank you very much. Interesting. Most of the calls tonight, the consistency of the calls is because you're a public servant, we hold you at a higher standard. I don't agree with that. I think you hold everybody the same standard. But I'm going to challenge you to think about what you really believe in and where the First Amendment rights begin and end.